he just made this statement and he didn't explain it. He didn't give anything to support it. He didn't provide the supporting data. And see, that's the perplexing thing about all of this. Is that irresponsible? About a month ago, Pope Francis made a statement about homosexuality. It wasn't so much an official statement. It was more like he was just speaking about something, and this is how it came out. And, you know, some people were ecstatic about the statement that he had made, and other people were horrified by it because, you know, in both cases, it implies something about how the church interacts with homosexuality. At least that's the way people were taking it. What exactly did Pope Francis say? Well, he didn't really say anything with clarity. It was just kind of an offhanded comment. He was just saying that people in a homosexual relationship might want to bring their relationship into a civil union so that they would have the protection of the law for their relationship, so that the law will recognize their relationship. Right off, he's making a statement that homosexual people have dignity. We need to make sure that their needs are met, and one way to do this is by entering into a civil union. And right off, that does sound a little simple, doesn't it? I mean, nothing too complicated there. But it has implications in other places, and this is why some people reacted the way they did, either positively or negatively. And as for me, when I heard about it, well, I immediately thought, how is this going to impact my ministry? I mean, what I was thinking about at first was things like sacraments. If someone is divorced and then remarried and they want to make their first communion, what am I supposed to do with them? Well, let's see. If they are remarried but they don't have an annulment for the first marriage, then they're living a lifestyle that is not in accord with what the church teaches. And this remarriage would be a civil union because they can't get remarried in the church because they haven't had an annulment yet. And this is all hypothetical, but I have seen this play out before. Well, I can't let them get their first communion because they're in a marriage that's not recognized by the church. So they need to get their marriage recognized by the church first, then they can receive their first communion. But in order to do that, they have to get an annulment first. And that's kind of a process that gets way drug out. And so they should not be receiving their first communion. Okay, that seems like it's always been clear. If homosexual people are now allowed to enter civil unions, well, surely Pope Francis wouldn't be saying that if they weren't allowed to come to communion after. But they're not in a marriage recognized by the church. How could they come to communion if they're in a marriage that's not recognized by the church? So apparently the church is now okay with civil unions. Now don't jump ahead here. I'm thinking things through. This is my thought process. But now I don't have to worry about that? Now it's okay for people who are in civil unions to receive communion? Is that what Pope Francis is saying? And see, that's the perplexing thing about all of this. Because he just made this statement and he didn't explain it. He didn't give anything to support it. He didn't provide the supporting data. Is that irresponsible? Are we thinking maybe, wow, here goes Pope Francis again. He didn't think this through? Because, I've heard comments like this from people. He didn't think things through. He set us up for something. He knocked down one of the dominoes, and there's this whole cascade that went after it, but he didn't check to make sure that the dominoes were in the right place first. There needs to be much teaching that accompanies this if we're going to make big changes like this. But as I get thinking a little bit more about it, I'm not sure that that's really what Pope Francis was trying to do. In fact, I think he was trying to do something entirely different. Don't get me wrong, he was trying to say that homosexual people have dignity and that their rights need to be protected. He was saying that, no doubt. But beyond that, what are the implications of what Pope Francis was saying? I'm not sure there are any, except one, which doesn't particularly pertain to homosexuality. Let me tell you where I'm going with this. Pope Francis wrote, oh gosh, it's been a couple of years back, I don't remember how long ago, Church leaders have been called to form consciences, not to replace them. And what he means by that is that it's the duty of the church to help people build up their conscience. Like you build up a muscle, we have to build up our conscience so that we have the capacity to make conscionable decisions. That's what he means by replace it. But we have rules for so many things. You know, do this, do that. And they're very often rules that have moral implications. Well, what is Pope Francis doing with this statement here? Church leaders have been called to form consciences, not to replace them. If you have a rule for everything, there's no need for conscience. You just look at the scenario that you're in, you plug in the formula from the church, what they tell you to do, and then it's all good, right? That's replacing a conscience. That's micromanagement. But that's what Pope Francis is saying that we should not be doing. Instead, Pope Francis is saying that we need to help people form their own consciences so that they can make their own conscionable decisions. How do you navigate? How do you figure out what to do? Because there's so many rules and they have so many implications, and it gets hard to sort your way through all of them. And the rules are made for people in general situations, and, you know, most people don't find themselves in general situations. Most people find themselves in situations that are specific to themselves. And so they still have to figure out how to interpret the rules, which means we need to be able to have consciences so that we can work those rules out. Not micromanagement, but taking an active role in how we live our lives. We need to take an active role in how we live our lives. And Pope Francis is saying that the church needs to help us build up our conscience so that we have the ability to live our lives in just that manner. Well, if that's what Pope Francis is really advocating, and I believe it is because he put that in a formal church document, if that's what Pope Francis is really advocating, well, then we need to take a look at his new teaching on homosexuality in just that light. Pope Francis was not trying to reform the sacrament of matrimony. He never said that these civil unions would be sacramental. He never said that they would be equivalent to a sacramental marriage. In fact, he didn't say anything about a sacramental marriage at all. In other words, he's not trying to change how we handle sacramental marriages. Well, if he's not doing that, is he saying that civil unions are an okay replacement for them? Well, he didn't say that either. What he's doing, I believe, is he's putting out there an option for people. He's saying, hey, here's something to think about. Did you ever think that since you can't get married sacramentally, that a civil union might be a good way to protect yourself? And he's not saying it's the answer to everything. He's not necessarily saying that it's the way to go. But I believe he wants people to understand that there are options. That, you know, you've got the way the church rules are set up here, and he's not trying to change that. But then, how do you navigate those rules? Because navigating the rules is a little bit different than just literally working them out in your everyday life. Because literally working them out doesn't always work. They don't take personal situations into account. Pope Francis is saying, hey, if you find yourself in this situation where the rules don't seem to cover you, well, you might try this option. You might at least consider this option. For those of you who are getting ready to fly your banners, either on the positive side or on the negative side, I don't think it's time for that. I don't think this is a huge statement about how the church deals with homosexuality. I think instead that this is a statement about conscience. This is an affirmation that our conscience is valuable and needs to be nurtured. From St. Luke Catholic Church, this is Ray Hurtle with Theology Quick Notes. Thank you for joining me.